Alrighty. So this strategy that we're going to be working on is cubes. You've definitely heard us talk about cubes before. Remember, for the cube strategy, the first thing we want to do is we want to circle all of the important numbers. See, we are circling. U, we're going to underline the question. Underline the question. What are we trying to answer? B, we are going to box the keywords. E, we're going to eliminate any extra information. So if there's anything in there that they're trying to confuse us with or trick us with, we're going to cross that bit out. And the last thing we're going to solve, and the most important, is check. Always want to check our work whenever we can. So let's come up here and take a look at our problem. It says, Daphne is trying to make a square sandbox for some kids in the neighborhood. She has enough sand to fill an area of 256 square feet. What is the largest side length she can have the sides of the sandbox be? So once we've read through the question, now we want to go through these letters on cubes. So again, the first thing we want to do is we want to circle those important numbers. Sometimes our numbers are going to be in number form. And don't forget, there are words. Words can be numbers too. Something to make sure that we look into. This problem though, we don't have any numbers that are in word form. What's this important number that in this problem that we need to circle? 256. That's the only number that we have in this problem. So since we're done with C, we'll put a check mark next to it so we know we're done with it. Now we're going to move on to U. We want to underline the question. That's usually at the end of our problem that we've got over here. So we're going to underline our question. What is the largest side length she can have the sides of the sandbox be? Always want to underline the question, make sure that we understand what to ask. Sometimes we see these numbers and we get so excited, we want to start doing math, but we need to make sure that we're answering the right question first. Go ahead and put a check next to that. One thing, sometimes it'll just be a direction. Sometimes it'll just be saying, do this. Put the numbers in order from least to greatest. So it's not always going to have a question mark. Sometimes it might just be a direction. B, we want to box the keywords. Keywords tell us direction. Like left, right, north, south, east, west, forwards, backwards, up, down, increasing, decreasing. They tell us units, like miles, dollars, pounds, kilometers. And they tell us operations. So for adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, squaring, taking the square root of something. Not all words are important. If it's not a direction, a unit, or an operation, it is not important. So let's go through this sentence by sentence and look for those types of words. Daphne is trying to make a square sandbox for some kids in the neighborhood. In that one sentence, do we have any words that tell us direction, units, or operations? The word square. The word square tells us that we need to draw what? It tells us that we need to draw this square sandbox. And that's going to help us with our operations. So square is an important word. It's a key word here. That's the only one in that sentence that is a key word. On to the next one. She has enough sand to fill an area of 256 square feet. Again, keywords are directions, units, or operations. What words in here tell us directions, units, or operations. Area. Area tells us what operation. Area tells us that we're going to multiply. We know that with a square, we have to multiply our side lengths to get the area of the middle. So we know we're going to have to be multiplying in our box. The other keyword here is square feet. That's a unit. Square feet, that's a unit. We want to make sure our units are the same, because sometimes we might have something in hours and something in minutes, and we would have to make sure that they're the same unit before we can work with those numbers. Those are the only two key words for that second sentence. Now for the question, what is the largest side length she can have the sides of the sandbox be? This one's kind of tricky to figure out what those keywords are. We need to think about the square. We need to think about the square. We know the area is 256 square feet. And the question is asking us for the largest side lengths. It's asking us for the side length. So I want to know what that side length is. I want to know what this side length is. So we know to get those side lengths, I have to think what number times itself is going to give me that 256. So if I'm looking for side length, of the area, what operation is that? If we're trying to find the side length from the area of a square, that tells us that we are trying to find the square root of a number. If we're trying to find the side length from the area of a square, that means we have to find the square root of that number. So that means to solve this problem, we need to take the square root of 256. We need to be thinking what number times itself is going to give us that 256. What's going to give us that area? So now that we've gone through and done the keywords, eliminate extra information. Again, we only want to eliminate it if they're trying to confuse us. But there's no information in here where they're trying to confuse us. There's no extra numbers, there's no extra people or words that are trying to confuse us. So there's nothing to eliminate here. Now we just need to go in and solve and check. So again, we're trying to think. We know the area of the sandbox is 256. And we need to figure out what those side lengths are. So I need to figure out what number times itself is going to give me that 256. Or you can think of it as the square root of 256 is equal to what number? You might be able to do this in your head, or you might need to use the paper and pencil. But go ahead, pause the video, solve that for me. Once you have your answer, play, check, and see if you're correct. So if we go through and we solve this problem, you should find that 16 times 16 is going to give you 256. So to answer our question, what is the largest side length she can have the sides of the sandbox be? Your answer should be 16 feet.